2010 Parish Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Would everyone stand while Al Williams gives us the invocation and pledge, please?
Dear Lord, once again we come thanking Thee for allowing us to see another blessed day. We thank Thee for this board and the blessings on this board and also this staff. And we pray for those who come in the audience seeking some help for whatever matter. Guide us and lead us that we might do that which is pleasing in our sight. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Coach Williams. Roll call, Christy.
Chair John Duhan.
Here.
Vice Chair Harold Doucette.
Here.
Mr. LaSalle Williams.
Here.
Mr. Jake Porche.
Here.
Mr. David Connor.
Here.
Mr. Sam Breaux.
Here.
Mr. Whit Baker.
Here.
Miss Betty Brown.
Here.
Miss Latricia Cobb. And Mr. Elijah Gilry.
Here.
And Mr. Gary Navarre is out. He's out of town.
Thank you. This is an 11-member board. It will take a majority of those members present to grant or deny any requests heard tonight. The meeting will be conducted with me reading the requests from the agenda. The planning staff will give a presentation and report their recommendations. If the applicant would like to add to the staff's presentation, or if someone from the audience has comments, please come to the microphone here at the corner. State your name and address and the nature of your request. Any person wishing to speak other than the applicants need to fill out a blue card back in the back. I recommend that a spokesman be selected if there's a large group wishing to speak on any one item. After the discussion, the board will vote on each request. I will announce the decision of the board after the vote. All zoning exceptions and variance cases are final tonight. Rezoning will go before the police jury for final action on Thursday, June 17th, 2010 at 5:30 p.m. in this same room. This meeting is being taped by the Calcasieu Parish Government Channel and can be viewed on Wednesdays and Thursdays following the meeting. For additional run dates, check the website www.cppj.net. Channel 5 in Lake Charles and Sulphur will cover it, Channel 61 in Moss Bluff, Westlake, Benton, and DeQuincy, and Channel 99 in Carlos and Grand Lake. At this time, please turn off all cell phones or pagers. First item on the agenda is take appropriate action on the minutes of April 20th, 2010 Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I've got a motion from Mr. Doucette, a second from Mrs. Cobb. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 6, the first one, Helen Lefevre, has been withdrawn. And we're going to take number 17 and move it to the front. The last item goes first. Mr. Alan Smith will address this item.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that we defer this matter for 30 days. I've been in touch with Mr. Atherton's attorney. I spoke with him again today, and my understanding is that the spokesperson for the group of residents who live in the nearby subdivision is out of town on vacation this week, and so we're trying to work this matter out. There's some legal problems involved, and I'm trying to work them out with his attorney.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. You heard Mr. Smith. Opposition leader's not here, and he's still negotiating with the attorney. So he's asking for a 30-day delay.
Motion to defer for 30 days.
I got a motion.
I'll second it.
And I got a second from Mr. Motion from Mr. Doucette, a second from Mrs. Brown. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. If anyone is in the audience from that was in opposition, that's why we moved it first, so we wouldn't hold you. We're sorry that we keep calling you up here, but we are trying to work this thing out. Thank you. Next on the agenda is to take appropriate action on case EX07-018-10, a request by Edward Lee Kinney for a zoning exception to allow a bar pit 10 acres at 3762 Highway 108 in Ward 7.
The petitioner's property is located in the Carlos area. It encompasses 67 acres of A1 agricultural zone property, and the petitioner would like to be able to dig a borrow pit on the property. It would be a 10-acre borrow pit with approximately 10% of the dirt being removed from the site. After the pit is complete, the petitioner does plan to use the pit as a personal use pond. And the staff does recommend that the request be granted with the customary stipulations, and I'd like to read those in for the record. That the extraction and hauling be performed from daylight to dusk only, that the extraction is performed in accordance with the site plan on file, that the contractor will take necessary steps to maintain dust control and prevent spillage from occurring on any public road, that the contractor shall not haul during inclement weather, that the developer will obtain a local development permit prior to hauling, that the exception is subject to any requirements of the police jury regarding weight limits on affected parish roads, that the pond not be backfilled, that the development adhere to stormwater plan that would include best management practices, and that said stormwater plan be submitted and proposed measures be in place prior to permit issuance, that notice of intent for application for Louisiana Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit through the Department of Environmental Quality be submitted prior to development permit issuance, and that permit issuance is good for 5 years or when the excavation is complete, whichever occurs first.
Thank you, Ms. Swallow. Any questions or comments? Got a motion from Mrs. Cobb. A second from Mr. Guillory. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, number 8. Take appropriate action on case EX 04-019-10, a request by Joseph Richard for a zoning exception to allow a bar pit, 7.8 acres at 3421 Highway 90 West in Ward 4. Ms. Wallace.
This property is located west of Sulphur and encompasses approximately 40 acres of A1 agricultural zone property. The petitioner would like a zoning exception to allow a borrow pit that would be 7.8 acres in size, and nearly all of this dirt would be removed from the property, and upon completion the pit would be used for a personal use pond. The staff does recommend that this request be granted with the same 11 stipulations that I read into the record on the previous case.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Got a motion from Mrs. Cobb.
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Breaux. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, number 9, take appropriate action on case EX 04-021-10, a request by Dallas and Betty Webb for a zoning exception to allow residential development, a manufactured home on American Legion Road in Ward 4. Ms. Wallace?
This property is located in the Westlake area. The property encompasses just over a half an acre of R1 single-family residential zone property. The petitioners would like to have a zoning exception to allow a manufactured home to be moved on the location for their son to live in, and they actually plan to put a 2007 16-foot by 72-foot manufactured home on the property. And the petitioners do reside on a piece of property that is east of this particular property. The staff recommends that the request be granted with the stipulations that the development adhere to the site plan on file and that the manufactured home be skirted prior to utilities being connected.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Any questions or comments?
Motion for approval.
Got a motion from Mrs. Brown, a second from Mr. Doucette. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, number 10, take appropriate action on case EX 08-022-10, a request by Teresa Brown for a zoning exception to allow 3 manufactured homes on one lot at 6182 Lofton Road in Ward 8. Ms. Wallace.
This property is located in the LeBleu settlement area, and it encompasses just under an acre of A1 agricultural zone property. The petitioner is requesting a zoning exception to allow 3 manufactured homes on one lot. And just to give you a little bit of history about this situation, the petitioner came into our office some time ago and applied for a permit to put the 3rd manufactured home on the property. And at that time, we told her that she wouldn't be able to put 3 manufactured homes on one lot. And so we went ahead and put a stipulation on that permit that the 3rd manufactured home or one of the 3 be moved off within a certain time frame, and that 3rd manufactured home was not moved off. And now Ms. Brown's plans are to allow a friend to move into the 3rd manufactured home. The staff does recommend that this request be denied, but if the board chooses to grant the request, we would ask you to add a couple stipulations. One is that the development adhere to the site plan on file, and the second is that the manufactured home be skirted within 30 days of zoning approval.
What was the time frame on that, one more time, for my information? When was this thing, when was the zoning, when was the mobile home supposed to be replaced? What was the date?
John?
It was 30 days from permit issuance,
And the permit was issued when?
about a year ago.
Okay, that's what I, okay. Any
So
other
we
questions?
have given time to
Right.
make a
year.
combination.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Is she wanting
Who
to
said?
remove the existing? So in other words, the one that we asked to be removed in 30 days has not been removed, and they're asking for permission to leave it there.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Would Mrs. Brown step to the mic, state your name and address, please? There might be some questions of you. Is anyone representing her? Yes, ma'am. State your name and address, please.
My name is Teresa Brown. I live at 6182 Lofton Road, Lake Charles, Louisiana, 70615.
A year ago is when you asked for mobile home and you were told to remove it in 30 days.
Yeah.
And as of this day, you still have not removed that mobile home?
No. See, when the trailer people moved his trailer onto my land, they messed it up. Well, they won't fix it. So we was going to decide if they couldn't, we couldn't do this like we asked to put this trailer to leave his trailer there. I was going to move into his and tear mine down. That's the only stipulation I had.
Any questions, Ms. Brown?
I didn't understand the response.
We can't do that. Well, then that's what we plan on doing.
I think she said something about when they moved the trailer in, the ground was messed up and we couldn't move the other one out.
Now,
That-
could move the rounds all messed up, and they messed this trailer up when they moved it in.
Yeah.
So you have a trailer on there now that you
Yeah.
want to
Yeah,
live in?
I'm living in one, and his is behind mine.
So you
There's
wanna-
no electricity to his at all yet.
You want to tear yours down and
I'll
live
just,
in his?
yeah, if I can't leave his there, I'll tear mine down and we'll move in his. He has a 2-bedroom trailer, but he messed it up when he moved it in, and they won't fix it.
Any other questions, comments of Ms. Brown? Got a couple of people who wish to speak. Carolyn LaFleur, would you please step to the mic and state your name and address? Thank you, Ms. Brown. We'll call you back if we need you.
My name is Carolyn LaFleur. Most people know me by Cookie LaFleur. I live at 6185A Lofton Road in Lake Charles, Louisiana, which is a neighbor to the property. I would like to say it's a pleasure today to stand before you, but if I would say that, it is not true. But I am grateful, however, to represent my community for our grievances against Mrs. Brown and her companion, Joey Swear. Mrs. Brown requested this hearing for a zoning exception to allow 3 trailers on this property. Mrs. Brown allowed the third trailer in question to be moved on this property with no permits and knowing that she was breaking the property's zoning code. Or you see, Mrs. Brown has previously asked about a trailer for her son to be moved on this property not long ago. She was informed at that time 3 trailers could not and would not be allowed to be put on that property due to city property ordinance. So knowing all this beforehand, Mrs. Brown chose to ignore the zoning and move the 3rd trailer on her property, making this now a problem for you as the zoning board and ourselves as concerned neighbors. The trailer has been on the property since early fall and does not appear to be in livable condition, judging by the underside and the outer hull. No improvements have been made, and we feel as a community it is crowded on the property and it is a safety issue to Mrs. Brown as well as the nearby neighbors. There is no room for emergency vehicles if the need should arise for them to get to the 3rd trailer. The property is approximately 104 foot wide and about 416 feet deep, although the announcement in the American press stated that it was 208 by 208. My measurements surely would show that I am to be more accurate if you were to examine the pictures taken by this office. The third trailer appears to be 30 foot long, clearly taking up the width of Mrs. Brown's property, leaving no more than 10 to 14 feet on either side of the trailer. This calculation is not taken into consideration the ditch running alongside the east side of the property. The trailer in question sits directly behind Mrs. Brown's trailer, about 15 feet. We once had a quiet, peaceful, and clean neighborhood before the appearance of Joey Ware. Since his introduction into our neighborhood, some of us now know the phone numbers by heart to our parishman, the Planning and Zoning Board, and the Sheriff's Office. Several calls have been made to the Sheriff's Office before because of the fighting, yelling, and cussing on Mrs. Brown's property. We now have to limit our outdoor activities with our grandchildren because of the abusive activity in our once peaceful neighborhood. After numerous phone calls to the board and your committeemen, we had hoped that airing our grievances would not have come this far, but we are here today, the neighbors, to attest that it has. We ask you stay with the precedents of the past and not allow this third trailer to remain on the property of Mrs. Teresa Brown. In closing, I say thank you, and God bless us all.
Thank you, Ms. LaFleur. Does anyone have any questions of Mrs. LaFleur? You did say that one of the trailer, the last trailer they moved on, you said was not livable because of?
Well, underneath, you can see that the floor has got to be all rotting. You can see the things hanging from it.
Insulation and stuff.
Insulation.
And a hole in the wall, did you say?
Well, I said the outer hull.
Oh, the outer hull.
It's really, the siding looks like to be replaced by just regular tin that was painted.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Ms. LaFleur.
Thank you.
Okay.
I guess I do have a question.
All right. Mr. Doucette?
She was already given the permit to move the third mobile home on there, having to remove the other within 30 days.
Basically a replacement.
Right. That hadn't been done.
Nope.
So if we don't pass this, which one does she move? The one she's living in and the one she can't live in? Because the one that we granted the permit for is the one that she claims is damaged and is not livable. The one she's living in is the one that was intended to be moved. So, I mean, we're kind of in a catch-22, I guess.
I suppose that's something that we would just have to speak with her about and try to negotiate something that would work out for both parties.
Let me ask her that. Mrs. Brown, if you step to the mic again, please.
Be our choice.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Teresa Brown, 6182 Lofton Road, Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Mrs. Brown, the question is, if the board tonight decided to make you remove one of the trailers, which one would you want to remove?
Mine.
The one that you moved in?
Yeah, no, that's his that we moved in. I'm living in mine. We're living in mine right now.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I got you. All right,
Chair,
so you would
Maybe she could refer to the photograph and identify it.
pull that up again. Which one?
It would basically be the one in the middle, right?
Mine's in front and his is in the back. His is like a gray color trailer. Yeah, that one right there. The back one is his.
That's the one you
Yeah.
would move?
That's the one he moved in behind mine.
Okay, and
Yeah.
which one would you move?
I would move in his and tear mine down because the hurricane tore mine up, and
I got you.
I never got a new trailer like I was supposed to have.
Right.
There you go.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Cobb?
Well, if she was supposed to remove it a year ago
Mm-hmm.
and has not removed it,
Mm-hmm.
what assurance that we're going to have that she's going to remove the trailer now? What's the procedure now?
If we tell her tonight she's got 30 days, what's the procedure to remove it?
I believe that we would just have to consult with our legal counsel and put together the appropriate documentation to move forward. the court system, I'm sure, would support your authority in doing that.
Mr. Smith, would you like to address that?
Well, I'd have to file suit against her and get a court order. And if she doesn't obey the court order, then we'll go out there and move it ourselves.
Could I just tear it down and take parts off of it, or just
In
do
30
that?
days.
Well, I'll do that then. I'll just tear it down. Because it's falling apart. The hurricane tore it up, and I was supposed to get a brand new trailer,
But
and I never
even
did.
at tearing it down, you're talking about a mobile home's on a huge metal frame.
Right.
What you going to do with the frame? You have to,
Haul it away.
okay.
Just haul it away.
You understand, Ms. Brown, you have 30 days?
Yes. I'll see what I can do, yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Motion for approval.
I got a motion for approval.
Second.
I got a second from a motion from Mr. Doucette, a second from Mr. Baker. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
No, the approval that it be denied.
That's
Right.
a recommendation.
Yeah,
They recommend that.
a yes vote would be to keep it, a no vote would be to get rid of it. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. A yes vote, she could keep all three. A no vote, she's got to remove one of them.
My daughter lives on the first one.
Okay, thank you.
Do we specify which, or do we allow which at her choice?
I think at this point, we're going to allow her to make that choice. Okay. Christie?
Chair Juwan, since there's 10 of you, do you want to not vote?
I will not vote on it unless somebody...
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
No.
Mr. Doucette?
No.
Mr. Williams?
No.
Mr. Bro?
No.
Mr. Porsche?
No.
Ms. Cobb?
No.
Mr. Baker?
No.
Mr. Connor?
No.
And Mr. Gilrery?
No.
9 against. It failed.
Motion fails. Mrs. Brown, the attorney for the police jury is a pretty tough guy. He sticks up to his word. Perhaps you want to move that in 30 days before you get in legal trouble on this. Because, you asked 30 days before to move it, and you
Yeah,
did.
move either one.
Yeah, we don't want it to get to be a legal issue.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Thank you.
Number 11, take appropriate action on case EX 04-023-10, a request by Susan Deaver for a zoning exception to allow residential development, a manufactured home, and to decrease the side yard setback requirement. Required is 5 feet. She's requesting 4 feet at 404 Stifle Road in Ward 4. Ms. Wallace?
The petitioner's property is located in the Westlake area and encompasses about a quarter of an acre of R1 single-family residential zone property. The petitioner would like to sell this property to her daughter, Amy Fruget, and Ms. Fruget plans to put a 1996 16-foot by 76-foot vinyl-sided shingle-roof manufactured home on the property, and this manufactured home is what she and her family live in right now in South Towner Manufactured Home Park. So she would move from the manufactured home park to this location. And since the property is only 84 feet wide, to put this manufactured home there, Ms. Fruget would also need a variance to allow 4 feet on each side yard, and that would be a variance from the 5 feet that's required. The staff does recommend that this request be granted with the stipulations that the development adhere to the site plan on file and that the manufactured home be skirted prior to utilities being connected.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Any questions or comments?
Motion for approval.
Got a motion from Mr. Doucette.
Second.
Second from Mrs. Cobb. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, take appropriate action on case EX 05-024-10, a request by Charles Bertrand for a zoning exception to allow a bar pit at 4018 Navajo Trail in Ward 5. Ms. Wallace?
This property is located north of Edgerly. It encompasses just under 10 acres of A1 agricultural zone property. And the petitioner would like to have a borrow pit at this location. It would be a 2.75 acre borrow pit. And pretty much all of the dirt would be removed from the property. And then once the borrow pit is completed, it would be used for a personal use pond. The staff does recommend that this request be granted with the customary 11 stipulations that are read into the record earlier.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Any questions or comments? Got a motion from Mrs. Cobb, a second from Mrs. Brown. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is to take appropriate action on case EX 01-025-10, a request by Coffee Farms for a zoning exception to allow a bar pit, 5.5 acres on North Perkins Ferry Road and Coffee Road in Ward 1. Ms. Wallace?
The petitioner's property is located in Moss Bluff, and it encompasses just over 300 acres of A1 agricultural zone property. The petitioner does want a zoning exception to allow a 5.5 acre borrow pit, and about 50% of this dirt would be removed from the property, and then the pit would be used as a pond for a future subdivision to be developed around the pond. The staff does recommend that this request be granted with the 11 customary stipulations.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Any questions or comments?
Motion for approval.
Got a motion from Mr. Doucette, second from Mr. Gilroy. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is to take appropriate action on case EX 04-026-10, a request by Terry Lane for a zoning exception to allow a bar pit, 1.3 acres, at 1035 Moss Lane in Ward 4. Ms. Wallace?
This property is located south of Sulphur and encompasses 5 acres of R1 single-family residential zone property. The petitioner would like to excavate a 1.3 acre borrow pit, and approximately 60% of this dirt would be removed from the property, and then the pit would be used as a personal use pond upon completion. The staff recommends that the request be granted with the customary 11 stipulations, plus another stipulation at the request of our engineering department, and that stipulation is that a road damage bond in the amount of $25,000 be provided prior to permit issuance.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Got a motion from Mrs. Cobb.
Second.
Second from Mr. Doucette. All in favor state aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is to take appropriate action on case VA 01-009-10, a request by Eddie and Laura Robinson for a zoning variance to allow accessory buildings to exceed the maximum square footage. Allowed is 2,000 square feet. They're requesting 2,818 square feet at 1015 Ravenhurst Drive in Ward 1.
This property is located in Moss Bluff, and it encompasses 0.64 acres of R2 mixed residential zone property. The petitioner did obtain permits to construct this building, the 3-car garage. It's 1,760 square feet, and it was later determined that this garage plus the existing storage that the petitioner had on his property exceeded the maximum square footage, and the maximum allowed is 2,000 square feet. So total, the petitioner will have 2,818 square feet of storage space on the property. So the petitioners have the following storage buildings: the 40 by 44 metal garage, which is the building in question, a 10 by 20 foot storage tent, a 16 foot by 30 foot storage building, and an 18 by 21 foot carport. The staff recommends that the request be granted with the stipulation that the development adheres to the site plan on file with the division.
Thank you. Ms. Wallace. Is someone here representing the Robinsons? Yes, would you please step to the mic, state your name and address, please?
My name is Eddie Robinson, and my address is 1015 Ravenhurst Drive, Lake Charles, Louisiana, 70611.
Mr. Robinson, I think the question here is, as you've heard the square footage allotment, and which is considerable. I've got 1,500 square feet. I keep a boat, a tractor, a four-wheeler, and a bunch of tools, and you've got quite a bit more. And the problem comes, I think some of your neighbors are complaining, and it is a violation of the ordinance. So, is there any way we can resolve this issue?
Well, when we requested to build our garage there, all we was going to use it for is to park my cars, my 2 cars, and my boat. I was going to put it in there. And at the time when we decided to build, we was waiting on a water runoff, and we got that. And then after the fact, when they showed up my door and told me that I'm over the square footage, well, I've already got the building built now. And one of my accessory buildings is nothing but a tent. It's like a vinyl tent. I got a table in there that I'm trying to rework. And then, of course, I got my boat on the little portable carport. And, of course, I already had a portable building on the property.
Any questions or comments of Mr. Robinson? Go ahead, Ms. Cobb.
If he removed one of the buildings, would that suffice for him?
Would you answer that question, Mrs. Wallace, please? She
He
asked
would-
if he would remove one.
He would actually have to remove the larger building, the 16 by 30, to get him under the threshold. If you remove the carport and the storage tent, it still wouldn't get him under the 2,000 square feet.
Thank you.
When you got your permit for the building of the building that puts you over the limit, did you present the building?
I showed like a
diagram?
site plan, and but I don't know how accurate that was. But I didn't realize the tent, because I actually had two tents. I took one down because I had, I think I had 15 days to take it down, and I was just fixing to leave on vacation, so I had my sons take the one tent down. I had some shelves in there because we want to have a garage sale out of our new carport we built. I got a bunch of stuff in my building. It's full. What has happened is when I was living in Ringo, because we've been here almost 3 years now, I moved from a 2,400 square foot brick home to a 988 square foot home. So I had 3 portable buildings, and me and my wife been married almost 28 years, and that's why that building is full. And my request is I would hate to have to move that building because I'm going to have to cut trees, I'm going to take down fence, and then I'm going to have to carry it right across my front yard. And if I would have knew to start with, when they come to my door and told me I had a complaint, I already got my building built, and I wouldn't. And if he would have come and told me and said, "Mr. Robinson, you're over already," I would have just said, "Hey," I wouldn't build a building that big. I'd have just built a 20 by 20, and then I would have been under my square footage. But I just didn't know. But anyway, I know now.
My question, though, is did you present a diagram of the building that you were going to build when you got your permit to build it?
Yes.
Did you build according to the specs of the diagram that you?
Exactly. I mean, I brought everything because it's a pole barn basically, and I got 3 roll-up doors, and I had to present everything according to the permit. I had to present everything, their insurance, the specs of the building, the kind of concrete, and then they had to come out and inspect before I poured concrete. Everything had to be exactly what the permit said.
Any other questions? Mr. Bro?
So when he built the metal building, all the existing buildings were there already when you got your permit for the metal building?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Doucette?
If I were to ask the board to make an amendment to this, if you would remove that 18 by 21 carport that was adjacent to the 16 by 30 metal building where you have your boat now, and that 10 by 20 tent, if you would remove those 2 in 30 days, or your building's ready to put something in it, right?
It's
Slab in
ready.
it?
I poured concrete today right before the rain I wanted to widen my driveway out, and somebody come by the house and said that I got another complaint, and all I did is, you see where the dirt work is in the corner there, I widened my driveway out because my driveway's so narrow. When I put my boat out, I almost run off into the ditch because I guess whatever the minimum is on the driveway width, I got it. And I usually hit the edge of the culvert. So I just finished it today when I don't know, somebody from the board had come by and said that he had to take some pictures because we had a complaint pouring concrete.
So where would that put us?
Want to ask him that question again? I don't know.
If we remove the 18 by 21 carport,
And the 10 by 20,
That's-
what would be?
that's 578 square feet.
Yeah, it puts it 22.
So if we subtract that from the 2818, I'm not that good at math.
Be about
2,300.
300 over.
But
Basically, if we would grant him permission to keep the 16 by 30 temporary on skids and the one you just built, could you remove that tent and that 18 by 21 carport in 30 days?
Yes.
Still be over, we could grant him the variance. It wouldn't be a 2,800 square foot variance, it'd be 23 or 2,400.
300.
And it would be 2 less buildings on the property, which would be less of an eyesore for the neighbors. I think it'd be a compromise.
Would you like to make that in the form of a motion?
Oh, yeah, everything I just said. You got all that?
Chairman.
I want to read that
Chairman.
again. The
Chairman.
request is to remove the two smaller buildings, and which would give him about 2,300 square foot left.
Mr. Chairman, before we do that, is there anyone that's in opposition that want to speak? 'Cause I'm kind of concerned about, what's the opposition? Or they're
Okay.
just having a big building.
Yes, sir. We do have a motion on the floor. Yes, Mr. Flochet.
You said that when you applied for your permit that you didn't have the tent on your site plan or the carport, but you did have that metal building on your site plan?
Yes.
So we would basically just be approving what he was given a permit for,
Given in the first place.
if he removed those two buildings.
I don't have any blue cards in opposition, so no one, they didn't turn it in. If you would, bring it up front, please, and turn in the blue card. I tell you what, if it's okay, Mr. Doucette, let's hold your motion until after the opposition speaks, and then. Yes, Mr. Robinson, if you step aside and let this gentleman, please state your name and address, sir.
Hi, Wayne Fetter, 989 Ravenhurst Drive. Based on your discussion, we really don't have a problem with the building as far as the variance of the 300 square feet that you're talking about right now. The only other issue that, I don't know if you can make it in a stipulation or not, but in putting up the 1,700 square foot building that you see in the picture, there was an increase in the elevation of the property, approximately 2 feet, to our side, which is the left side of the building, which is about 3 foot from the property line. And also behind the shed, there's about an 8-foot area. And again, it's raised up about 2 feet from the property that's behind it, which would be on Whippoorwill. And there's a Mrs. Dupriest, who's a widow, and I don't believe she's here, but she's indicated that there's been some additional standing water during the heavy rains and so forth in the back of her yard, as you know, we're assuming as a result of the building and the raised elevation. So if there's some way that we can get the drainage issues so that they're not a factor, then again, between that and the variance to the 2,300 square feet, we really wouldn't have a problem, because overall it does improve the Robinsons' property, but there are those drainage issues, and again, the 4 or 5 buildings that were there does create an issue.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Do we know if he exceeded the elevation levels, or if he is what it was required at the building?
I guess we could ask him. I imagine he put down a pad to put his building on, and probably the additional elevation of the pad is what you're describing.
I think Mr. Robinson put a dirt base down first to raise the level. We have property around us that starts higher, kind of towards the roadway on Ravenhurst, and then goes down in the back of the lots, which would be going towards Whippoorwill, and so probably in the front it was probably a foot or so, but it's probably 2 feet in raised elevation in the back, and there is a significant height difference at that point.
And you said there's some standing water on her property.
Yeah, Mrs. Dupriest on Whippoorwill. Again, it's the lot directly behind Mr. Robinson, and we talked to her last week, and there's been some increase in standing water on her property. And again, if there's a way to correct that drainage issue, I don't think anybody's surprised around here in the wetlands area that we have a number of places that have the water and standing water issues.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Poster.
The standing water, is this a result of heavy rain or this, it stays there?
It's a result of rains.
It looks to me, the way the roof system's designed, that it's probably just carrying a lot more water off that roof towards the back side of that lot than now that the building's there. Maybe a gutter system along that back would redirect some of that water.
Mr. Smith, would you address that for us, please?
Yes, sir. The Louisiana Civil Code provides that you can't do anything with your property that increases the burden on your neighboring property, and drainage is one of them. Really, this board doesn't have the authority to require somebody to do drainage, particularly since we wouldn't know what we were requiring them to do, short of postponing this and asking that they bring some sort of a drainage study in here for approval by the staff that would alleviate the problem. You know, catch basins and a pipe along the back, run it down the side to the street, but none of us here knows if that would really solve the problem. I mean, I don't want us to punt, but really it's a legal issue.
Another agency, yeah. Yes, Mr. Doucette.
I think during the applicant's conversation with us initially, he made the comment that he was held up for a period of time waiting on drainage approval. So I'm sure that drainage study has been done, and if there's a problem with that, probably needs to be addressed with that particular agency. We're strictly the square footage, but having said that, would you feel comfortable if we asked him to remove those two buildings that I'd recommended?
Yeah, as far as the overage, 300 or 400 feet, we don't have a problem with that. Before that building was built, the area that was or is now built up and where that building was located, anytime there was any kind of rain, there was a significant amount of standing water in that location.
It held water regardless before.
Well, like I said, probably where that middle door is, and going back towards the property, and that would be behind that property going into Whippoorwill, would hold significant amounts of water. And you've basically taken that 1,700 square feet of grass and now turned it into concrete in a building, so that water has to go someplace. And right now, it's, like I said, it's going towards the back and also towards the side. I guess you can see it, but that green fence that's, again, about right around 3 feet from the left side of the building is our property line.
Thank you, Mr. Feder. Yes, Mr.
So is the neighbor's remedy at the staff level? Is that where they're going to go to deal with this drainage issue that's been created by this construction?
Well, when I look at Mr. Robinson's permit, I don't show that we actually required a stormwater plan. So I think at a minimum that we can require that through our office to see if that can address the issues.
Okay, so I mean, I had the same. I'm glad Mr. Smith brought that up. I didn't think we had authority to deal with it, but he does have a remedy to go back to staff and do that. So we're going to be dealing, I guess, just with the variance on the square footage.
But you may want to stipulate that Mr. Robinson get with us within a certain time frame so that we can ensure that there's follow-through.
My amendment's getting longer.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, if you don't mind, step to the mic again, please. What they're asking to do in the, I think Mr. Doucette's going to make us add to the stipulation that you see the staff about the water removal and see if it's a problem. Do you have any problem with that, sir?
No problem.
Okay. Okay. All right, Mr. Doucette, you want?
Yeah, let's see how that went. I'd like to make an amendment that the petitioner remove.
Two smaller buildings?
Yeah, I think the one was a 16 by 21 carport, 18 by 21 carport on the northwest corner of the property, and the 10 by 20 tent on the southwest corner of the property, and that do those within 30 days enough, sir?
Yeah.
30 days sufficient, within 30 days, and also in that 30-day period, contact staff on water abatements due to construction.
Do I have a second? Got a second from Mrs. Cobb. So we got a motion on the floor to remove the two smaller buildings at the two corners, and which leaves them 2,300 square foot, and see staff about drainage.
Point of order. That still has to say that motion still needs to say that we're allowing the variance to 2,300.
Yes.
And you didn't say. You said an amendment. I don't think we had a second on the original motion. So does the motion say we're allowing the variance and the amendments say remove the building?
I think the amendments are going to remove those, and then the motion would have to be restated to state 2,300. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, so motion to allow variance to 2,300, amendment to remove those two buildings and seek
Stormwater approved.
Stormwater approved. Okay.
Want to make
Let's- Okay, let's have a roll call vote on that, please.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Doucette?
Yes.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Bro?
Yes.
Mr. Porsche?
Yes.
Ms. Cobb?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Gilry?
Yes.
9 for.
Mr. Robinson, it passes as amended. And
Okay.
if you would take care of that, would be appreciated.
Just, I need to just come to the,
Yeah, just come by and see one of the staff members. They'll point you in the right direction.
okay.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Amendment passed. Now, I need a motion for the
Motion for approval on the item as amended.
okay. I got a motion for approval, a second from Mrs. Cobb. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Next, take appropriate action on case RZ 01-006-10, a request by Steady Set Growth Learning Center for rezoning from R2 to mixed residential to C3 business, central business commercial, to allow a daycare, infant center, and administrative offices at 212 East Telephone Road in Ward 1. Ms. Wallace.
The petitioner's property is located in Moss Bluff and encompasses just over 1 acre of R2 mixed residential property. The petitioner, Mrs. Pulaski, owns and operates a daycare in 2 adjacent buildings on some adjoining property, and her daycare is full, and she would like to expand her operations. To do that, she'd like to build a 58-foot by 66-foot building on this particular property, and she would use that for an infant daycare and for her administrative offices. The existing daycare buildings would remain open for other students. The new development would consist of the 58-foot by 66-foot brick building, 10 asphalt parking spaces, and landscaping. The staff recommends that the request be granted as long as the development adheres to the site plan on file, that all drives and parking areas be hard surfaced, and that the building have a brick facade.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Any questions or comments?
Motion for approval.
I got a motion from Mrs. Cobb,
Second.
a second from Mr. Gilry. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is to take appropriate action on the revision case of RZ. No, I'm sorry, we already did that one. Next, number 18. The next item on the agenda is to advise that the police jury took the following action on May 20th, 2010 in reference to recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Board on May 18th, 2010. All of them were granted and upheld. So, next item on the agenda is to advise that the next regularly scheduled Planning and Zoning Board meeting will be held on Tuesday, July 20th, 2010, in the police jury room at 5:30. Motion to adjourn.
Question.
Yes, sir. Mr. Baker.
It's for the staff. How do we determine who gets the $25,000 road bond? How's that established? I've only seen it applied twice.
Well, in this particular case, our engineering department felt that the road, being a local neighborhood type road, had not been constructed to standards that could withhold that type of truck traffic.
So it's neighborhood roads, or?
Yes, that is a local neighborhood road. It wasn't built to any industrial standards, so there's no soil cement underneath and things like that.
So anywhere in the parish we have a neighborhood pit, that'll be the standard.
It should be, yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn. All in favor, state aye. Aye. Adjourn.